Hey, what's up guys? It's Coach Karina. I wanted to chime in a little bit on some questions that I've been getting lately about the difference between hip hinging and squatting. Some of the exercises look the same in some people and sometimes they feel the same, and so I wanted to talk about the key differences, because if they were the same, would we really need both? The guy who invented the FMS, Gray Cook, says if they're the same, we could delete one, and we haven't, so they must be different. The key difference is the movement of the pelvis. So here's what it looks like. Here we are standing up. Hips are straight, knees are straight. When we squat, we bend the knees and the hips primarily move down. And so the line of the spine, kind of head through her shoulders, down through her hips, is pretty straight. Not vertical, but it's a pretty straight line. And it's parallel, more or less, to the line of the shins. The hips are right behind. They don't necessarily need to get below the knees to count as a squat. The key is the hips are moving primarily down and the back is staying straight, not vertical. But that line, that angle will stay the same and not change back and forth until she's all the way up. So we don't really see the spine tilting forward and back. It stays straight and kind of moves up and down on that same plane. And the hinge is different. Hip hinge, as she bends her knees, which stay right over her ankles, the hips move back behind the base of support. The angle of the spine, head through the shoulders, down through the hips, is tilting forward with respect to the line of the shins. And through hip hinge exercises, the angle of the spine does change. It always stays straight. It doesn't round, but it does change. And in the squat, it kind of travels up and down like that. Shoulders and hips moving together in the squat. So the easiest way to look at this is to have your athletes hold a dowel. Hold something that's kind of obvious right behind their back. So this is touching my tailbone, and it's touching my the back of my head. And as I squat, it tilts forward, but it basically, so that angle stays the same as opposed to tilting up and down like this, like it would in the hinge. So again, squat, hips go down. With the hinge, the hips are going back toward the wall behind me. And the angle of this spine's still straight, but it's changing. And the knees basically stay right over the ankles in that, in the hinge. And I know a lot of times that we find ourselves cueing for the squat, we're saying keep your knees over your ankles, don't let your knees go out in front of your toes. And that's true, but sometimes we need to move the hips back a little bit for that to happen, but the primary movement of the pelvis is still down toward the floor. The reason we want to do this is that, or the key anatomy difference that's key with these exercises is the function of the glutes. Squatting is a bit more legs. The glutes are supposed to be helping, but the quads are very active, as opposed to the hinge, where it's really mostly the posterior chain, back muscles, glute muscles, hamstring muscles, that are the primary power source in those exercises. So again, we do need both. So we have a combination of all those muscles acting in life. So our training should support that. So the hinge is important because it is the basis of two of our favorite exercises that we do all the time, that we see a lot of: the deadlift and the kettlebell swing. The deadlift is a loaded hip hinge, so the hip hinge mechanics need to be good in order to load it. And then once we load it, we can think about adding speed if the mechanics are still good. So once you as the coach have established that somebody has a competent hip hinge mechanics, they're able to stabilize themselves and balance and not fall on their backside when they bring their hips well behind the base of support, then you're allowed to load it. So say we pick up a weight and we do the same thing. By the way, every time you pick up a weight in the gym or put the weight down in the gym, it's a hip hinge, it's a deadlift. I don't care how tired you are at the end of your set of kettlebell swings, put it down as a deadlift. Keep those hips hinging, keep your spine neutral, protect your body. At the end of a set, when you're tired and there's load, is the most risky opportunity. So please protect yourself from it and remind your athletes to do that too. So with this deadlift, if the hips are going back and my weight's coming down toward the floor and my knees are more or less staying over my ankles as I do so, what do you think? My hip hinge mechanics still pretty good? Okay, so let's try going a little bit faster. There's a couple key pieces to the kettlebell swing I want you to think about. The first is the hike. So the weight starts kind of out in front of your body. As you bring the weight towards yourself, it's a hinge. So you're not going to round, you're not going to really feel like you're picking up with your arms very much. You hike back as you're hinging, and then you swing, and you end in a thing that looks like high plank. The arms are more or less at the height of the shoulders, but that's not our requirement. It's just that they sort of end up like that because of the power generated in the hips. So first we hike back, we swing up, and we hit that high plank. Try to keep the knees right over the ankles. The back stays straight. and the weight comes up only as high as I get it because of the power coming from the lower half. Last repetition, deadlift to put it down. Don't drop stuff. If you picked it up, you can put it back down. You got this? So there's two kind of key differences. In the squat, the hips are moving down towards the ground. In the hip hinge, the hips are moving back towards the wall behind your base of support. In the kettlebell swing, the back is still flat, the hips are still hinging, and the power is generated from the lower half. Hit me up with any questions or comments. If you've listened this long, you are such a dedicated coach. Please keep taking such great care of your athletes. Work hard with them, teach them well, and have lots of fun.